Hey everybody! In this video, we are going to make very cool collage style winter card. I am using some Hero Hues ink to ink up my bold prints background stamp. And this is this fun swirly winter background, and it just so happens that the Blue Raspberry Hero Hues is a perfect match for tone-on-tone stamping on this special Bermuda cardstock. So once this is all dry, and I did heat set this, I always have to heat set it in my climate. Once it's dry, we can move on to the rest of the card. So we're going to do a modified eclipse technique. I call this shifted eclipse. So it's going to be very similar to when you die cut something from an already stamped piece of cardstock and then just stack those up to give a dimensional look, but that keeps the background the same. Well, this time I'm using these snowflakes and I cut them twice. I cut them once from my stamped card front, and then I cut them a second time from white cardstock. And that is to give me the elevation that you typically see in the eclipse technique and give me a flat surface to work with instead of a surface with some negative space cut out of it when I'm building my background. So I'm just scoring a white A2 card base, and I will glue the background onto the card base. Now, when you're working with something that has a negative space like this with those little pieces where the snowflake is cut out, go ahead and put glue on a lot of those little tiny pieces like you see me doing here. That will really help the entire thing stay flat through the mail, etc. You want those really to be adhered really well. So once that is done, I will fill in these snowflakes with the white snowflakes that I cut just out of white cardstock. Again, make sure you get all the little fiddly bits glued and put that in there. And now you can see what I mean. I have a flat surface to be working on. You're not going to see very much of this white, but it just makes the card look more finished to fill in those little snowflakes. Now, this precision glue is great. It does not stay sticky when it's dry. It's a really great glue to work with. And I'm a glue person. I'm not a tape runner person. And so I love having this little skinny one. It fits nicely in the storage on my desk. It also is just an all-around great glue. I do store mine upside down, though. That's my glue tip, with the point down. And that helps it keep from clogging up on you if you're like me and you leave the cap off a lot. I do that almost daily. Then you'll just get better performance out of your glue if you store it upside down. Just put it in a cup or something on your desk. So I will piece this last little guy. And now you can see perfectly smooth card front. It's back to the way that it was, except I have the advantage of having this little white outline from shifting the die cut over just a little bit. Now, because the snowflakes were cut from the already stamped background, you're going to want to make sure that the pattern lines up. So I wasn't really paying attention to that when I first put this snowflake down. And so that first one is not lined up correctly. So I'm attempting to save myself the embarrassment of having that on my final card. And that's where that wiggle room that glue gives you really helps, because I was able to pull that up without damaging the card and then put it back down so it matches the pattern in the background. Now I will do the same thing for the other two snowflakes. And so you can see, it's funny because in the eclipse technique, you're just stacking the die cuts on top of each other. They're not shifted like this. But this shifting actually makes it look more like a real eclipse to me. So I enjoy doing this technique. I do it a lot. So I'll put this little guy down. This one was hard to figure out. I think I did all 5 tries to spin this one around and get it put down properly, but I finally figured it out. So you can share my embarrassment at not being able to do that. On this pattern, it wouldn't really matter. It mattered to me because I could see that the lines weren't matching up on that first one, but you could get away with it, especially when you see how we're going to finish this card. Now, this one I got on the first try. That was kind of a miracle. So now they are all down there, and we're going to continue to build this background. First, I just get a little bit of unicorn pigment ink onto the raised snowflakes. This is going to give almost sort of that chalkboard feel from the chalkboard technique, but what it really does is emphasizes the fact that these are raised on my card front and makes them stand out just a little bit more from the background. I still want to be able to see the background, but I like being able to see that dimension. And that's easy enough to do with pigment ink. You could do this with Hero Hues as well. You could use the sea salt ink. Now I'm taking my very favorite stamp in the entire world, this script stamp, and I do this all the time on backgrounds. I just sort of bend the stamp and apply text in little spaces to where you don't really have an edge. It's kind of a soft way to get that script into the background. And I did it in white because I wanted this whole thing to be sort of monochromatic. But this stamp is always on my desk, and you can see why. Now I have a little bit of acrylic ink that I will be splattering this card with to sort of give that feeling of snow. So I usually just fold a piece of paper in half to kind of protect the rest of my desk. I never protect my shirt, by the way. All of my shirts have ink splattered all over them, but I do protect the front part of my desk. So I have a little watercolor dish here, and it still had some watercolor in it. I don't mind that. It's fine. If those two mix, especially on this color scheme of a card, it works great. And I just have a very cheap, really awful paintbrush that I saved just for splattering, and I'm just loading up the brush and flicking that on. Now I'm actually mixing the watercolor and the ink together, and I'm going to use those in my art journal. So whenever I have leftover ink from a project like this, I open up my journal and I splatter some stuff. So here's what the finished card looks like. Head over to the Hero Arts blog for more information, and thanks so much for watching.